Suge Knight was once the name that made everyone in hip-hop sit up straight. In certain circles, it still does. He wasn't just some imposing figure who ran a record label. To many, he was the embodiment of intimidation itself. Wherever he walked, a sense of dread seemed to follow. People whispered rumors about what he'd do behind closed doors, stories that made him sound less like an executive and more like a villain out of a chilling urban legend. Yet, in the midst of all the fear he inspired, there was one artist who refused to back down: Eminem. It's hard to picture a young Marshall Mathers going toe-to-toe with a powerhouse like Suge Knight, but that's exactly what happened. As soon as Eminem aligned himself with Dr. Dre, he inherited all of Dre's friends and foes. And there was no bigger foe for Dr. Dre than the man who once commanded Death Row Records with an iron fist. The story of how Suge's world collided with Eminem's is one of power plays, intimidation tactics, and near misses that could have spiraled into something far worse. Yet each time Suge and his crew tried to shake Eminem, the response they got was pure defiance. To understand where all this fury began, you have to step back to the early 1990s, when Death Row Records seemed untouchable. Dr. Dre's groundbreaking album, The Chronic, exploded onto the scene and established the West Coast as a dominant force in rap. Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style followed, becoming another instant classic that cemented Death Row's reputation for churning out hits. Tupac eventually joined the label, releasing projects that fueled the label's momentum to almost mythical heights. Behind the music, though, lurked an atmosphere of fear. People knew Suge Knight demanded respect at any cost. Rumors spread about how staff members who dared cross him found themselves assaulted, extorted, or worse. Backstage at Death Row, chaos reigned. Stories circulated of individuals being forced to strip at gunpoint, allegedly for using the company phone without permission. Tales of loud screams emanating from behind locked studio doors became commonplace. Those who valued their own safety kept their heads down and said nothing. This toxic environment didn't fit well with Dr. Dre's creative spirit. When the hostility outweighed the musical magic, Dre knew he had to escape, even if it meant sacrificing every royalty check he had on the table. He walked away from Death Row with nothing but his instincts to guide him. Losing Dr. Dre was more than just a business loss for Suge Knight. It felt like a personal betrayal. As Dr. Dre launched his new venture, Aftermath Records, Suge watched from afar, convinced that Dre would fail without the Death Row engine behind him. And for a while, it appeared that might be the case. Aftermath's initial releases were met with lukewarm responses, and critics questioned whether Dr. Dre's golden touch had faded. Then came the day Dre stumbled upon a demo tape from a Detroit rapper who carried a rawness and hunger no one had seen before. Eminem was unlike the polished West Coast and East Coast artists of the time. He was white in a predominantly black genre. He was irreverent, and his lyrics were laced with dark humor that sounded like nothing else on the radio. Dre decided to take a chance, a risky move that hip-hop purists eyed with skepticism. But once the Slim Shady LP dropped, Eminem's success silenced most doubters. It sold hundreds of thousands in its first week, winning Grammy Awards and re-establishing Dr. Dre as a kingmaker. From that point on, Dr. Dre and Eminem became a powerhouse duo. As Aftermath Records soared, Death Row drifted into decline. Tupac was gone, leaving a void no one could fill. Snoop Dogg, tired of walking on eggshells around Suge, took off to sign with Master P's No Limit Records. With his star artists vanishing and legal troubles piling up, Suge Knight had plenty of time to stew in his anger, particularly toward those he believed had walked out on him, Dre and by extension, Eminem. By 1999, Eminem was the talk of the industry. Everyone wanted to see what this brash, comedic, razor-tongued MC from Detroit would do next. Yet behind the scenes, Suge Knight's shadow still loomed, reminding everyone that Death Row might be wounded, but far from finished. The Source Awards that year gave a glimpse into Suge's lingering influence. Eminem, fresh off his early success, arrived at the ceremony ready to present an award. As he headed to his seat, he was suddenly surrounded by men in red shirts who radiated hostility. One of Eminem's associates caught the tense standoff from the corner of his eye. He recognized those men. They were Suge's crew. They spat out words about death row, making it clear that Eminem was on their radar. Rather than panic, Eminem calmly excused himself, went on stage, and delivered the presentation. There wasn't a quiver in his voice, no sign that he'd just been threatened moments earlier. Later, when the event ended, Suge's goons allegedly waited outside, as if hoping for a confrontation. Eminem's team slipped into a limo, scanning the rearview for any sign they were being followed. It was a surreal reminder that success in hip-hop sometimes came packaged with real danger. In the years that followed, more incidents illustrated the tension. On a supposed Hawaiian getaway that Dr. Dre and Snoop had arranged for their families, local police warned them that Death Row affiliates had also landed on the island. The trip turned into anything but a vacation, as everyone stayed on guard, expecting a confrontation that, fortunately, never escalated to violence. Then came the infamous In Da Club video shoot for 50 Cent, another artist aligned with Dr. Dre and Eminem. As cameras rolled, word spread that Suge Knight had pulled up outside with a large group of men. People on the set were visibly rattled, but Eminem stood his ground. He walked out, ready to face whatever was coming. To everyone's surprise, Suge and his entourage turned away without a major incident. Over time, Suge took sporadic verbal jabs at Eminem, claiming he wasn't truly from the streets, that he was little more than a character Dre had engineered. Yet every time Suge spoke, it felt more like a man grappling with the downfall of his own empire than someone genuinely exposing secrets. Death Row was no longer the shining star of the hip-hop universe. Its founder, once feared by everyone, had become entangled in legal battles that further eroded his standing. Eminem, for his part, rarely addressed Suge directly. He was busy piling up hits, battling other rappers who called him out, and occasionally referencing the entire Death Row drama without naming names. In Like Toy Soldiers, Eminem alluded to the fact that Dr. Dre had asked him to steer clear of certain conflicts, and perhaps that included anything to do with Suge Knight. But even the quiet can't last forever. In the mid-2000s, Eminem reportedly recorded a diss track titled Smack You, taking aim at both Ja Rule and Suge Knight. For reasons unknown, he shelved it. Some speculated that unleashing such a direct assault on Suge back when Death Row still had significant clout might have placed a massive target on his back. Only years later, in early 2025, did the track leak to the public. When fans heard the savage bars accusing Suge of involvement in the demise of Tupac and Biggie, they realized how serious Eminem had been about protecting Dr. Dre and himself from Death Row's dark legacy. The reaction was immediate. People marveled at how fearless Eminem had to be, recording scathing lines about someone most in the industry wouldn't dare mention. Suge Knight, for his part, continued to lash out from time to time. In interviews, he dismissed Eminem's projects, including the posthumous Tupac album M produced, claiming it wasn't true to Tupac's style. Critics, however, argued that Suge's comments sounded more like bitterness than honest critique. The album sold well, even if it received mixed reviews from Pac's most loyal fans. Over time, that spat morphed into just another footnote in the lengthy tale of Suge's grudges. Looking back, the image of Eminem going toe-to-toe with Suge Knight, often cited as the boogeyman of hip-hop, is a testament to the strange twists of music history. Who would have guessed that a wiry rapper from Detroit with bleach blonde hair and an endless flow of controversial rhymes would stand firm against the man who symbolized West Coast dominance and intimidation? The standoffs never escalated into a headline-grabbing brawl, but they revealed the core of Eminem's personality, an artist who simply refused to be bullied. Suge Knight's empire eventually crumbled under the weight of legal issues, betrayal, and the loss of star power. Death Row Records went from the pinnacle of the rap world to a cautionary tale about how quickly power can vanish when it's built on violence and fear. Eminem, meanwhile, kept pumping out chart-topping albums, collaborating with Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, and others who respected his relentless work ethic and raw storytelling. The more time passed, the more that Suge Knight's threats seemed like echoes from a bygone era, overshadowed by M's unstoppable rise. Today, the story still fascinates hip-hop fans because it captures an era when rap feuds were more than just diss tracks. They involved real-life danger, real muscle behind the scenes, and genuine fear of confrontation. But Eminem never bowed to that fear. He turned it into fuel for his music that transformed him from a struggling battle rapper in Detroit to a worldwide icon who could hold his own against any adversary. In the end, Suge Knight's attempts to undermine Dr. Dre's success, and by extension, Eminem's, only served to highlight a deeper truth. Talent and determination can eclipse even the most intimidating threats. When Eminem stepped up, unafraid to stand his ground, he dealt a blow to the myth of invincibility that surrounded Suge Knight, and in doing so, he helped write a new chapter in rap history, proving that no amount of muscle could hold back raw creativity and fearless ambition. The next time you hear a story about someone strong-arming their way through the music business, remember that it doesn't always last. Eventually, somebody like Eminem will come around, call the bluff, and turn the so-called boogeyman into just another footnote. Suge Knight may have once ruled with an iron fist, but Eminem proved that sometimes defiance and skill can dismantle even the most daunting legacy. Let that be a reminder of how fragile power can be, even for the most feared man in hip-hop, and how a determined underdog can ultimately change the game forever.